Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I say good. It's a little bit damp down here in the New Forest, but we're very pleased that you've got up early for our Dawn Chorus special. You've just been listening to the Dawn Chorus at the RSPB's Lock Garden Reserve. Remember, all the RSPB reserves are closed at the moment, so we can't visit them. So the Society has done a great job of going around those reserves, taking these Dawn Chorus recordings, which you can listen to throughout the course of the day. More details about that coming up a bit later on. Now, our idea this morning is to try and bring you a number of different Dawn choruses, not from just around the UK, but from around the world, Europe too. And we have only been able to do that with the close cooperation of our friends at The Sound Approach. And you can follow them at Sound Approach UK on Twitter. Every day they post a number of bird songs or calls. And today, of course, they're going to be concentrating on the Dawn Chorus. And again, we'll tell you a bit more about that later. The Sound Approach are a collection of sound recorders. They are probably the best in the world, and they produce some extraordinary books. And I've got two of them here, Undiscovered Owls, Magnus Robb here, and this one, Birding from the Hip by Anthony McGeehan. I did have three of these books. I had another beautiful one with a hobby on the cover, chasing a dragonfly. I loaned that to someone, and they didn't give it back to me. You know who you are.
Be in trouble now.
Do you know, that's one of the things that probably annoys me more than anything else. When you loan someone a book or a Blu-ray or DVD and they don't give it back to you.
Yeah, that is quite annoying.
Yeah. So now I've got a little book, and I always write down who I loan
No,
things
you
to. Yeah,
do you?
I do have a little book, and then I'll give them a reasonable amount of time. If they don't give it back to me, I'll start nagging them.
Yeah, that's even worse. You're nagging.
You know who you are. You know who's got my Sound Approach book. Anyway, more to the point.
Public nagging.
More to the point. These books are absolutely sensational. But of course, because it's about sound, there's also the download equivalent. And I've actually downloaded the one with the hobby on onto my iPad, where it's easier to add that to be a lot more interactive. They don't just explain which songs are which. They show you the sonograms. They explain the song. There's enormous detail here. So if you're really getting into birdsong and you want to do it at the specialist end, then the Sound Approach books are the way to go. Anyway, should we crack on?
We should.
Having had a moan about people stealing my books, my Blu-rays, DVDs, in the old days, records.
Oh no. Okay, I'm going to interrupt now.
Someone has got my Hong Kong Garden by Sushi and the Banshees in a gatefold sleeve. I know who you are. It's been 40 years, but I still might come round.
Calm down.
You take a breather.
No,
I've got off on a bad foot this morning, haven't I? Really? I've remembered who's got my Hong Kong Garden in gatefold. Right. Megs, why do birds sing? Let's move on.
Let's move on. As biologists and anybody who's interested in wildlife, the most important question is why? Why does that animal do that? Why does it behave in that way? What ecological benefits does it gain? Because of course, anything with a behaviour has to have a benefit coming back in return. And of course, we've stood in the woodland. It's raining now. Birdsong's gone down a little bit. But why Dawn Chorus? Why do they sing? What's the purpose of that? And why in the morning? There's two questions I really want to answer here. And there are a couple of theories about why they sing in the morning. The first one goes back a really long time. And the idea was that the sound is supposed to travel further the earlier in the day. It tends to be slightly drier. So the sound wave can go even further. And it tells those predators, those rivals for your territory, to stay back even further. And it, of course, calls more mates from further away in. Now, I was reading yesterday, and I always thought this to be true. And there was a study done in the 1990s which pokes a couple holes in that theory.
No.
So I'm going to have to do some more research because I'm really fascinated by this.
But is it what you're saying is that then the cold's still there in the morning? That's physically not the case.
It might not be the case. No. So the study was done looking
I've been saying that, and so's Gary for years.
Sorry. I'm just giving you more research, more science.
Oh no, so we like updating the science.
So new research looking at sparrows, looking at both woodland and sparrows that live in agricultural land, has found that, in fact, their song travels just as far in the afternoon as it does in the morning, if not further. And that might be because of the lack of wind. But I mean, I'm up for a conversation on that because I it's fascinating to hear the different sides of it. But we don't know. But there is, of course, another reason about why they sing in the morning. Of course, predominantly it's the males who are singing right now. And it shows that I'm really strong. I've gotten through the night without feeding. And therefore, I am the fittest male for you to mate with. I'm still here. I'm singing my heart out. I'm singing loud And it's getting to all of those beautiful females who, of course, can be attracted into the strongest male who sat at the perch singing his little heart out to attract them in. So, of course, there's that reason as well.
Because they've got high metabolic rates, so if they get through the night without eating, they should be starving in the morning and needing to eat straight away, but they're not, they're singing.
But they're not, they're singing, and therefore they are much fitter. And of course, it's slightly darker in the mornings as well, so there is slightly less risk of predation with them being so loud.
Oh, and sitting up on those
song posts, exactly. And of course, it is a risk that they'll get predated because they are being incredibly loud, but the benefits far outweigh the costs in that situation. But of course, the main reasons why they're singing is to attract females in, to attract mates in, and of course defend their territories as well. So that is why we have a dawn chorus throughout the breeding season, and that is why they sing in the morning.
I wonder if any predators actually tune themselves in particular birds that sing in vulnerable positions. You know the way the greenfinch will sits up on top of the bush making that trilling sound, which is really loud and penetrating. I'm wondering if at this time of year, some of the, say, things like sparrowhawks don't tune into that and think there's a greenfinch singing somewhere. It's a bit busy. It's not thinking about what it's doing. All it's doing is singing. You know, shall I have a go at it? I mean, they pick up on visual things like that. We call it search image. I wonder if predators have an acoustic image. More research, potentially. Anyway, what about a quiz? We normally have a quiz at the start of one of our broadcasts. We've got a quiz for you today. Our friend Gary Moore, who we'll be going to see live in a minute, has sent us a recording. We want you to identify the recording. So we're going to play a clip of it now, have a good listen, and then send your answers in Twitter, Facebook, the usual thing. Right, so here we go. Here's one of Gary's excellent recordings of a...
Pretty special.
So good.
Very iconic.
So good indeed. So good. Yeah. Okay, send us your answers in for that one. We have the first of our guests.
We should. So the first place that we're going around the world is Portugal, and we're going to be joined by Magnus Robb, who is a leader in song sound, the song sound specialist, and one of the founders of Sound Approach as well. So have a look at the dawn chorus where he is.
Good morning, this is Magnus Robb. I'm here in Portugal with Manila and with a nightingale right behind me, just 8 meters away. It's about 6:20 in the morning, I think. And we've just got to that point in the dawn chorus where some black caps have joined in, a few things that were not there in the beginning. When we left the house about half an hour ago, I could hear barn swallows singing in the dark, which was pretty strange. The whole village is full of them. And as we walked up here, it's about 10 minutes walk, and we could hear a nightjar that was still going. I've been hearing wrens, blackbirds, stone chats. There was a cyril bunting here a moment ago. Just listening what else I can hear. There's a wren somewhere further away over that way. Another one over that way. This nightingale's so loud you can hardly hear anything else. A few months ago I was hearing a pair of eagle owls down here. But I don't know where they've gone. I haven't heard them for a while. If they were around, they might be singing at the moment because they don't just sing in the dark. But they're not here. One of the birds I'm hoping to hear is the melodious warbler, which is a bird with an incredibly fast song, which is full of imitations of other birds. And I've been hearing one for the last couple of days, just back from Africa. One of the great things about melodious warblers is that they bring the sounds of Africa with them. So you can hear them imitating parrots and all kinds of things. Many of those birds I would never have recognised, but I was in sub-Saharan Africa for the first time last year, so I learned a few of those sounds myself. After I had recorded the dawn chorus, I did find the melodious warbler singing fanatically about 500 metres further along the path. Here he is. So I think it's time to say goodbye from here, back to Chris and Megan in the UK. Hope you enjoyed this.
The dawn chorus in Portugal. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Absolutely cool. The interesting thing is that even those species which we find here as well as Portugal produce different sounding songs in both of those places, and people like Magnus would be able to hear the difference with some of those. And certainly when he makes his sound recordings and produces what we call those sonograms, the visual representation of sounds, you can see the differences quite clearly, because birds have dialects. There's no doubt about that. Magnus, thanks ever so much for getting up very early there in Portugal and going out and recording those beautiful bird songs from that part of the world. Now, Magnus explained why birds sing in the morning. I'm going to explain now how birds sing. Now, we have a trachea, our windpipe, which goes down and it splits into two as it goes into our lungs. And in that trachea, we have something called the larynx, our voice box, where our vocal cords are based, a flap of skin which vibrates to produce the sounds that we produce in terms of language and so on and so forth. And we can only produce those whilst we are breathing out. Things altogether different with birds. Of course, they have the trachea, and of course, it splits into two when it goes into the lungs. But there is a very special organ which they use to produce sound. It's called the syrinx. And we've got a diagram of it here. If you look at that part of the diagram on the left-hand side, that's what it looks if you dissect a bird. So it's covered with those thick rings of cartilage, just as is our trachea, so the windpipe doesn't collapse at any point, and you've got a constant guarantee of air into those lungs. But in amongst those rings of cartilage are a whole set of muscles. And the interesting thing about the syrinx is that it's situated right where the trachea splits to go into the lung. Now, earlier on, Megs was explaining how birds use air sacs to guarantee that they're actually getting fresh air whilst they're breathing in and out at the same time. They need that, of course, to maintain their high metabolism. But because they've got air going in and out of their lungs whilst they're breathing in and out, that means that they can actually produce notes not just when they're breathing out like us, but also when they're breathing in. So they can do that double the amount. Now, I've got a diagram here of one of these syrinxes as well. And if you look at that, you can see that arranged around the side of the syrinx are various groups of muscles. And underneath those muscles, the syrinx skin, if you like, is very flexible. So birds don't have a voice box. They have these flexible membranes controlled by these muscles. And it's by contracting and expanding the muscles that they change the shape of the syrinx and therefore the notes that they are able to produce. Now, these muscles are amongst the fastest moving in the animal kingdom. We think that our eyes blink quickly. We don't. It takes 1/28 of a second for us to blink our eyes. But these muscles are moving far more quickly than that. And that's how birds are able to produce such a rapid cascade of notes in such a short space of time. Plus the fact that they're producing them whilst they're breathing in and out. But they've got another neat trick. As you can see, there are muscles either side of the split once the trachea goes into the lungs. And this means that they can actually produce two sets of notes at the same time. Different notes, different components of song. Now, some birds, canaries notably, produce what we call sexy syllables. And that is a scientific term of phraseology, believe it or not. And this is because what they do is produce these syllables by very rapidly singing one note from one side of their breathing apparatus and another from the other side as well. And they do this with extraordinary rapidity. And this is what makes those particular males attractive to the females. So it's a very different type of organ, and it works in a very different sort of way. And it allows these rapid cascades of notes to be produced. The birds have got a great diversity of song on that account. Remarkable thing. Siren.
2 notes at the same time.
Two notes at the same time,
multitasking,
and
isn't it?
also and many notes in tiny fractions of a second, because those muscles are moving so quickly, and there's enough air going through there that they can actually produce those sorts of. I'm going to
Remarkable.
finish off with another fact, which is actually sort of pretty tangential, but that's the way that my mind works. Did you know that archaeologists and people that study human culture actually believe that we as a species sang before we spoke? Because of the movement of the migration of our hyoid bone in our throats and in our tongues, our buccal cavities, that has moved. The way that they've been able to chart the movement that in archaeological remains of early humans dictates that we probably sang before we spoke.
Pretty special, isn't it?
Some of us still can't sing now.
No.
And sometimes we have difficulty speaking.
Well, I mean, we try, it gets to about 11 o'clock at night and we might give it a go.
Yeah,
We turn on the record, have a sing. But you know what? It's just not worth it.
No, it's
for
not.
us.
No. I tell you one thing. When I kick off to Punk Rock Midnight, I'm not producing any sexy syllables, I can assure you of that. But then you might argue, nor the Clash. I would think otherwise. Anyway, who's next up?
Anyway, we are now going to go over to Ireland to join Killian Milani. Sorry, I'm missing my words now. Now, Killian is one of the foremost bird artists in the world. He has some beautiful illustrations, absolutely exquisite.
Yeah, he's the top, honestly. All of my life I've been looking at his work, and he produces beautiful drawings. Absolutely stunning drawings to allow people to identify birds, and he's a real expert in the field, I have to say, by the way. He is Mr. Bird Identification.
Yeah, exactly. He has the authority on bird identification. He has experience all throughout Europe, in Northern America, the Middle East as well. So much so that, in fact, his illustrations are all in this fantastic Collins Bird Guide.
The Bible.
Have a look. It is a naturalist, an ornithologist Bible. I mean, they are simply stunning, aren't they?
Yeah, look at that.
Golden pheasant.
That's a bit exotic. Hold on, let's give Killian some other credit for doing something. Some of the tricky species like this, sandpipers and the waders.
All of those details, everything, all of those species combined into a fantastic book.
Also available as a download, and this is what I use on my phone all the time, and the sound recordings on it as well. So the Collins Guide with Killian's illustrations are absolutely fantastic stuff. Yeah. So Killian has been out and about in Ireland.
He has been, and he's recorded a fantastic bit of the Dawn Chorus where he is. Over to Killian.
Good morning. Killian Milani is my name. I'm a bird artist, probably best known for my work on the Collins Bird Guide, and I live in County Wexford in the south of Ireland. As you can hear, the Dawn Chorus is already in full swing. I'm about a mile away from my home, standing on a bridge over a small stream where there are dippers nesting, and where, if we're very lucky, we might hear one singing. There are also grey wagtails here, and I can already hear very dominant blackbird, robin, songthrush. So we'll just wait and see what develops. It's great to hear a goldcrest. Well, with the dawn chorus in full swing here, I'll hand you back to Chris and Megan. Bye-bye.
There we are.
Oh, isn't it amazing?
Wexford in Ireland. Well, that's where Killian lives, so presumably he's quite close to that area. And we were talking about his illustrations earlier. There's also a new sound approach book out, actually, which I don't have on my shelf yet. And I'm not going to loan to anyone when I do get it. A Petrel's Night and Day, and you can see Killian's beautiful illustrations in that as well. So thank you, Killian.
Yes, thank you very much, Killian.
That's fantastic, getting up early for us there. Now, another man who's got up early for us and has done for many years is my great mate Gary Moore, sound recordist extraordinaire. You would have seen him on Spring Watch making very emotive films about nightingales, catching up with a nightingale on the side of the M4, one of my favourite films in that series. But nothing touched his last piece of work when he was out on the Norfolk Broads punting. Yes, in an old punt, those things that were used to shoot birds, but Gary was there recording birds, and it was an absolute joy to watch. And he joins us from Bath now. Gary, good morning. Hold on, he's unmuting himself. The sound recordist who's muted himself. Hold on.
He switched the camera. It's going on and on.
Okay, that looks like Gary's wall.
You can also see a bit of a tripod, perhaps.
Okay, right, there we go.
See what's happening.
Here we are. Okay.
There
we are. Good morning, Gary. Good morning.
Hey. Morning, guys. Well, listen, I was up at 3:30 again this morning. My alarm went off at 3:30, and I've come to the eastern side of Bath. I'm actually situated just above the St Catherine's Valley. I brought no sound recording equipment, nothing this morning, no head torch. I walked in the bottom of the valley at 4:30 this morning whilst it was still dark. Put my back against a tree, no head torch, nothing, and just watched as it got light and just listened to the dawn chorus this morning. Absolutely fantastic. Busman's holiday, no sound kit, brilliant. Now I am going to say, Megs, I've got a little anecdote about the dawn chorus and the temperature.
Yeah.
It's believed that on a cold morning, frosty morning, the area is covered by a boundary layer of cold still air, and they say that the sound will travel 20 times further through that boundary layer of still air than it will through warm air. Now, a little anecdote, one of the programmes that I work on is Gardener's World, and I was recently working about 3/4 of a mile away from a busy motorway on the A1, and the director came to me and he said, Gary, isn't it a bit too loud to do this piece to camera? And I said, yeah, don't worry, I said, because it will be all right by about 10 o'clock. And he looked at me and he said, why will it be better at 10 o'clock? I said, because the air will have warmed up and you won't hear the motorway. And sure enough, by 10 o'clock in the morning, we couldn't hear the A1 that was 3/4 of a mile away. And the director came to me and says, Gary, I'm really sorry. He said, I didn't believe you. He said, I thought you was talking absolute rubbish. But sure enough, once the air had warmed, we could no longer hear a motorway that was 3/4 of a mile away. But when we got there in the garden first thing, it was frosty ground, it was clear blue sky, that cold layer of air, and we could hear the motorway. So for me personally, I think it does, that cold boundary layer really does work. So yeah, there we go. Meg's prove me wrong, but there we go. I think it works. Now this morning I've got 3 clips of birds that I'm actually missing at the moment. And the first one is a bird that's really wetland species, reed bed really. My nearest reed bed is Somerset Levels, and I'm really desperate to go to Somerset Levels. So as soon as lockdown's up, that's where I'm going to go, and that is a Chetty's warbler. Listen to this. There we go, Chetty's warbler, quite a powerful little bird. There's a big debate as to whether the wren, which is a small bird with a big voice, or the Chetties, again, which is another small bird with a really big voice, which ones actually sings the loudest. I think it might be the Chetties. So actually, look, I don't know if you can hear that, but I've got a plane. That's the 3rd plane I've heard this morning. So yes, dawn chorus during lockdown is amazing. However, listen to that, we have got a plane. Okay, now another one, a bird that I'm missing at the moment, and that is a wood warbler. This bird was recorded over in West Wales. It's the bird that's not around where I am. And just have a listen to this. Okay, that was a wood warbler. How amazing is that? They say the way to identify that and to remember it is to think of a spinning coin. So if you imagine if you spun a coin on the table and as it falls over, that's what they say. That's the best way to listen to it, is a wood warbler. And then my third one is a bird that, again, I'm desperate to hear at the moment because I know you've heard one, and that's the cuckoo. There you go. A real benchmark for me. As soon as I hear that cuckoo, I just know that summer's on its way. Now, people always say to me, Gary, isn't Dawn Chorus brilliant at the moment in lockdown? And I always say, well, it is, but it also depends as to who's listening and who's asking me that question. Because this is a real shock to most people, but humans' hearing is the most acutest at the age of 8. Can you believe that? An 8-year-old has got the best hearing, or that's the peak time in our lives that we're ever going to hear things. And as we get older, our hearing deteriorates. But it also deteriorates in different sexes. So men lose the ability to hear high frequencies. So I struggle to hear things like goldcrests. And yesterday I was out with my little lad who's 12, and he was putting me to shame. He's going, Dad, can't you hear that? Can't you hear that? And I'm going, no. Again, because he's 12, his hearing is so acute. So men lose the ability to hear high frequencies, but females lose the ability to hear low frequencies. So if you were doing a dawn chorus in a wetland area and you had bittern, for instance, men would be able to detect the bittern earlier and a lot further away than females. And so, but bizarrely, that's all based around reproduction. Because as we get older, men are no longer interested in high-pitched frequencies, and women are not meant to be interested in low-pitched frequencies. So I like to think of it, that's why old people rub alongside quite well together, because they can no longer hear each other. Anyway, so yeah, here we go. The Catherine's Valley, top morning.
Gary, thank you very much. That was absolutely excellent. I love that. I didn't know that about the loss of frequencies. I knew that we would lose our high frequencies. I struggle to hear certain species of bats, and like you, firecrest, goldcrest. I mean, I can once I've tuned in, but if I'm just walking through, they tend to pass me by.
I also believe, Chris, at the moment that this year your hearing has been enhanced in some way. Are you hearing dawn chorus differently this year?
I am, yeah, because like an artificial means. So I've actually got myself a pair of digital hearing aids, and it has radically transformed because I'm hearing things that I've forgotten I'd ever heard. Everything from the rustle of paper to the scratch of my unshaven beard, although it is shaven today, to those sorts of sounds. And they're proving to be a real asset. It's been a real sort of transformation for me, actually. But my problem being that I've lost so much of that high frequency hearing range that it's dipped below prescription. So I've gone for those hearing aids. Although, actually, curiously, I haven't got them in this morning because I rushed out the kitchen to get down here. I didn't plug them in. But they're still not going to be as acute as your parabolic reflector. I know you haven't got it with you this morning, but that's the tool of the trade for you, isn't it?
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. It's just like a giant, the outside of your ear is called a pinner. And that parabolic, it basically just collects the source from a wide area and focuses it onto the capsule in the middle. I mean, yeah, they are pretty much the industry standard. If you're interested in recording high-pitched birds, passerines, perching birds, brilliant. You wouldn't take the parabolic into a reed bed for things like bittern because the frequency is too low. So yes, for woodland birds, passerines, high-pitched birds, the parabolic is brilliant, but not for some things such as the bittern.
Fantastic. Gary, we have a couple questions coming in for you. Gary, what's your favourite recording?
Oh, that's a really difficult one. Listen, slightly biased, a nightingale probably, definitely. I'd say probably one of my favourite birds is a nightingale. I think recording, know that when I'm in my 80s and I'm sat in my rocking chair, I'll be able to play that recording and it will bring back that location, that time, that place. It'll just... Yeah, it's just being at the right place at the right time and memorable recordings. I guess it's recordings where all the ducks are in a row. It wasn't raining. The wind was right. There was no planes. There were no cars. So I'm like, always in search of that perfect recording. Chris is a photographer. You're always in search of that perfect picture. I'm always in search of that perfect recording. And so even though no matter how many how many great tits I've got in my library, how many, whatever I've got. I'm always inserted that perfect recording. So it could be the day when the bird might be facing me. There's no planes, there's no wind, that cold layer of still air to travel further. Perfect recording. Right place, right time.
Yeah, but I love that idea of you in your rocking chair, listening to it and
Yeah,
bringing back
hold
memory.
on. Oh, you've already got a rocking chair.
Okay, we'll do another couple. So what's the best thing to buy to help you with listening to and recording birds?
What's the best thing to buy? No, it's free. You don't have to buy anything. Just get up at 3:30 and get in the woods. You don't, honestly, please don't think that to do this you need to spend money, because you don't. It's the best thing. I always say that birdsong should be prescribed on the NHS. It's like yoga for your ears. That's what I say. Honestly, don't spend money. Don't just field. If you've got good field craft, you can get close to that bird and you can hear that song. Don't think you need technology or expensive microphones because you don't need to. No, just practice a bit of field craft. Get somewhere, learn about getting close to these birds, but don't get too close. You stop them from singing. So just practice your field craft. That's the best way to get some good bird song, definitely.
Gary, thanks ever so much for
Thank you,
your song this morning, for getting up early and joining us, telling us about the difference in sexual hearing loss, which has been fantastic. That was really good. Yeah, and I love the idea of, what did you call it? Yoga, acoustic yoga for your ears.
Without the down-facing dog.
Do you know what? You hate yoga, but you're doing it all the time and you don't even know it.
Yeah, you're right,
You're using yoga for your ear. Oh, you're never going to live this one
I'm
down.
yoga for my ears. You finally got me into yoga, Gary. Michaela Strachan's been trying to do that for the last 25 years and failed, but you've done it. Thanks ever so much. See you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Top work.
Top work. Now, of course, if you want to record birdsong and you don't have a parabolic like Gary, well, there's something that you can do at home to be able to record.
Yeah, which doesn't cost. Gary says doesn't cost a lot of money.
Which doesn't cost anything. You can use the bits around your garden. And to tell us a bit more about how to do this is my friend and fantastic ornithologist, environmentalist Ben Porter, who's been very busy during lockdown. I have to say, every day, I swear, I go on social media and he's transformed some area of his garden into a pond or I don't know, wildflowers or something. But one particular day, he made something very, very special, and it's something that you all can do as well. So have a look at this.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben Porter and I'm coming to you from a very sunny Llyn Peninsula in North Wales, where I'm self-isolating with my family at our home on the top of Mynydd Rhyw. I've been getting out a lot recently, particularly in the mornings, trying to get sound recordings of the birdsong and calls that we have around here. And ahead of Dawn Chorus Day, I thought I'd make a short video of how you can make your very own parabolic reflector. So this device, which I made a couple of weeks ago now, is a very simple and very low budget alternative of the more expensive ones that you can get. And all it comprises of is a plant pot, which serves as the dish, and then a handle fixed onto the back of it. And then on the inside, I've mounted my iPhone and run a sound recording app called Twisted Wave on that iPhone. Now the microphone of the iPhone is right at the base, which is why I've mounted that roughly in the center of the dish. So it's worth paying attention to where the microphone is. And then I've just used a bit of bungee cord to fix the phone on the inside there so it doesn't slip out. And then basically I've just got a hole in the base of the dish through which my headphone jack goes through and plugs into the phone, and then you just put on the sound recording app, get out there and see what you can record. And it's great fun. I'm really surprised with the results that I've had, and I'll put in some examples of the sort of recordings that you can get using this setup, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what other people can do with a bit of imagination and clobbering together what you can.
So I'm just giving the parabolic reflector a quick tester to show you what sort of recordings you can get using this setup. I've just got a wren singing in front of me here, incredibly loud for how small they are. Beautiful song. I'll edit this into the video so you can hear. It's a very still morning. There's a lot of greenfinches singing around. There's a carrion crow just then overhead. I'll see what else I can find. It's a brilliant way of just being able to connect with what's going on around you, and with such still mornings with a lack of noise pollution at the moment. I cannot hear a single car, single person, or dog even for that matter, which is quite handy, because it's a bit of a nightmare when you start tuning in with something so sensitive. You start realising how noisy a place we live in. Although, to be fair, I'm not in a town or a city, so it will be busier there.
So yeah, I hope you found that DIY tutorial useful, and I really hope that people can make some themselves and get out there and get some really nice recordings of birdsong. So look forward to seeing what people come up with. Back to Chris and Megan in the New Forest.
I love the make and do.
A homemade parabolic out of a flower pot.
Yeah, it's like sort of, when I was a kid, people of my age will remember Valerie Singleton, John Noakes and Peter Purves on Blue Peter. They would make anything out of like household objects, you see. This is way before your time. So they would like take like a toilet roll tube, some sticky back plastic, which was always necessary to make everything. I don't know, 2 pipe cleaners and make an internal combustion engine out of it. Or something like that, or thermonuclear reactor. Or probably not quite as ambitious as that, but no, that's a really good idea, isn't it? Really,
fantastic idea.
Yeah,
something really accessible for everyone to go out and do.
Yeah, brilliant. It is absolutely sensational. I'll tell you what, let's go to our next guest now. This is Arno Vandenberg, and he's in Holland, another member of the Sound Approach team. Many of his recordings will have been heard on those Sound Approach, not just the books, but the tweets and Facebook posts that they put out as well. So let's go over to Holland and hear a bit of a Dutch dawn chorus from Arno.
In the morning I placed the microphones in 2 different bushes. In the early morning, before it was light, there were just 2 species, vocal and very noisy, like these 2 were the grasshopper warbler and the common nightingale, which is quite numerous in this coastal area where I am now, which is 2 kilometers from the North Sea, along the Dutch coast, the coast of Holland. The chorus is changing during the morning. Later in the morning, birds like willow warbler, common white-throat, lesser white-throat are singing abundantly, and then also at a more wet place, like over there, it's garden warbler. And near these higher trees, common redstart, which you can hear now together with the nightingale. Not only during the day choruses are changing, but also of course during the season. 2 months ago it would be very busy with the sounds of woodlarks, and only since about 3 weeks or so, all these birds from Africa arrived. The birds I usually see in Morocco in late March, early April. They come a long way across the Sahara. Little warblers even all the way from South Africa.
Thank you, Arno. fantastic nightingale there.
Beautiful song.
Well, famed for being beautiful, rich, complex, diverse, but for me the most important component of the nightingale song are those little bits of silence which generate anticipation. So when it stops and then you're just waiting for it to start again. And what you can't underestimate is the volume of the nightingale. Gary was talking about the volume of Chetty's warbler and wren. Yes, they're loud, but the nightingale's call has been recorded at more than 90 decibels. And that's the equivalent of putting your ear up against a motorcycle exhaust. Now, I'm not sure which motorcycle. We'd need Martin's advice on that one, he being a motorcycle specialist. But basically, they're extraordinarily loud. And the reason they're singing so loudly and singing at night is they're trying to attract the migrating females down. So the males arrive on their territories first. They start pumping out this really loud song at night, which is when these small birds are migrating, so that they can call the females down from the sky into those territories. So yeah, not only diverse, rich, fluid, interesting, but also very, very loud. I always think of them as the sort of the Guns N' Roses of the shrubbery. Guns N' Roses of the shrubbery.
That's a new title, isn't it, for them?
There
Guns
we
N'
are.
Roses of
Anyway,
shrubbery.
Arno, thank you very much again for your contribution this morning. That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Now, on to our quiz reveal. And I can reveal that many people got this right. So Facebook, we have Laura, Alex, Claire, Gillian, Ziggy, Penny, Veronica, Max, Barb, Martin. We made it easy, didn't we? Got a whole long list. Margaret, okay, Robin, Twitter, Sue, Amanda, Heidi, Dean, Emily, Wendy, YouTube, Life, John, David, Paula, and Shane. Of course, you could say, Chris, you could say that all of these people were up with the lark.
They were up with the lark.
They were up with the lark.
They were up with the skylark.
They were up with the skylark. There we go. We've given it away. Of course, that song belongs to the beautiful skylark. Now, they are interwoven with our culture. They're highly adaptable birds. So that when we lost a lot of our woodland and turned it into agricultural fields, they were easily kind of adapted in that environment as well. And that song belongs to the gorgeous male who vertically flies upwards, and he hovers in the air somewhere between 50 to 100 meters. He hovers there. He's got extra long wings to help him with hovering, to keep him up there. And he will sing whilst he hovers. And this song will go on generally for about 2.5 to 3 minutes. However, the record is 20 minutes long that they can hover and sing to these females to attract them in. And he's directly up in the air, and he'll fall back down slowly. And as he lands, everything will fall silent.
Fantastic.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Song. Do you know, when I was a kid, they used to sing on the fields behind a local school and nest there as well. But like so many of the birds we've been talking about this morning, these songbirds, these sub-Saharan migrants, things like nightingales, although the skylarks are largely resident, their numbers have significantly declined even in my lifetime, and that's why our dawn chorus is sadly not as loud as it used to be even then. Anyway, got any birthdays?
We do. We have lots of birthdays today. So let me get this up. So I want to wish Helen Herridge from Henley-on-Thames a very, very happy birthday. Your daughter got in contact with me, so I just wanted to say very happy birthday to you. There is also Angela Smith, who turned 60 today, and Marcus, who turned 7. Lisa and Laura as well. It's your birthday too, so it's a birthday bonanza again today. Happy birthday to all of you.
Day too early, I would say, but nevertheless, that's just me.
Wow.
Right, okay. So, what about any questions that we can quickly answer?
So we've got quite a few questions that have come in.
Okay.
Some brilliant ones as well. Does one species of bird speak to another? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely they do. You often see mixed species flocks. And what they do is they congregate together, they will fly around together, and of course it's all about safety. So the main call that they respond to within species is the alarm call. And many different species will learn their neighbouring species' alarm call so that they can gather information about threats and predators that are nearby. So absolutely, they can learn from one another's calls.
And they have different calls, don't they? And so that they can tell the other species whether it's an aerial predator or a ground predator. And so, and you hear this mostly in winter with our mixed species flocks, when all the finches are going around with the tits and the thrushes and stuff in winter. But of course, in tropical regions where there's a greater diversity of birds, these things occur throughout the course of the year outside the breeding season as well.
Yeah,
amazing.
so it's not just one general thing. They're getting so much information from one another.
Yeah.
Chris, this is one for you. As breathing in humans is automatic, when birds are contracting their muscles in their throat, is that automatic, or can they control their muscles depending on how they want to sing?
Yeah, no, they can control them with remarkable, I suppose, dexterity is the word, and alacrity, speed and control. Um, and again, scientists have looked, I've mentioned before that the twitch ratio, I think it is, of the muscle, which determines how rapidly it can contract and expand, is incredibly quickly. And so as a consequence of that, they're in full control of what they're doing. Breathing itself, of course, is autonomic. We continue to breathe. We don't have to think about breathing, and that's the same with birds. But when it comes to their song, they're very much switched on to that, of course. And whilst we're talking about the muscles in the syrinx, in terms of actually the production of the sound, what we've got to remember is that it's the brain that's driving that. And we know that there are different brain capacities of birds to produce different songs. And those with higher brain functions, things like the nightingale, can produce a much greater diversity of notes than those with lower brain functions. Actually, one of those is the skylark. So skylarks don't have a great diversity of notes, but they really pump them out very loud and very rapidly, and they do it in a sustained way, which appeals to the females. So they're going for sort of, I don't know what to say, they're like the Ramones, basically. They're just pumping out a rhythmic sound without a break. And I remember those Ramone concerts would go for an hour and there was barely a pause, but they were the skylarks of the punk rock world. Whereas obviously I'm not going to say anything rude about the Ramones, they're absolutely brilliant, but birds with a higher brain function can produce a different thing. So yeah, the muscles in the syrinx are the mechanism, but the orchestration is all being done in the brain. There's been a lot of work done on birds' brains and sound recently. I could go on about it for ages. I better not, because we need to come to the end. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, at our regular time of 9 o'clock. Tomorrow, joining us from Scotland will be Holly Gillibrand, and she'll be telling us about an extraordinary adventure she had with the arcade ospreys up there. So we've got ospreys in tomorrow's programme, which will be great. Dawn Chorus Day will continue on throughout the course of the day. Hashtag Dawn Chorus Day. I'm told that it's already trending today, which is great.
First thing, when I woke up this morning, I looked on to social media and I can see that everybody was out. Everybody was out experiencing it. There were recordings there. Yeah. And I was just quickly like, oh gosh, I need to get out.
Get out.
Get out. So it's fantastic that so many of you have been out and enjoying Dawn Chorus Day and have been talking about it on social media. And remember to continue to do so as well.
Yeah, and I think an artefact of lockdown, probably, we know a lot of people are finding enormous solace and respite from all of this terrible tragedy by engaging with nature. And you don't have to be here in the middle of the woods. As we know, in our urban and suburban areas at the moment, with that lack of traffic, it's much easier to hear that bird song. And another time now, I mean, Dawn, we missed the sort of Dawn course because Dawn was quite a long time ago now.
5 a.m.
Yeah, it was. But then you've got this evening, and you'll notice at the end of the afternoon, moving into the evening, as the light begins to go down, probably the air cools next, I don't know, I'm just saying, then that will be another great time. If you've got a garden to do that, other than that, open your window and listen to those songs. Continue to engage with the RSPB throughout the course of the day. They're running all sorts of things on their various platforms. You can find them, of course, on Facebook and Twitter, and lots of things going on there, lots of beautiful recordings that you can listen to if you're indoors this afternoon. And we're going to play out this morning with birdsong from another RSPB reserve, one that's very close to my heart and relatively close to where we are now. It's in the south of England, down on the Isle of Purbeck. It's the Arn Reserve. It's a fantastic place. So thanks for tuning in this morning, and we'll let you listen to the Dawn Chorus on RSPB Arn.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.